The Tower of the Elephant, a Conan the Barbarian story by Robert E. Howard. First published in Weird Tales and lightly edited for content and sensitivity. Chapter 1. Torches flared murkily on the revels in the mall, where the thieves of the East held carnival by night. In the mall, they could carouse and roar as they liked, for honest people shunned the quarters, and watchmen, well paid with stained coins, did not interfere with their sport. Along the crooked, unpaved streets, with their heaps of refuse and sloppy puddles, drunken roisterers staggered, roaring. Steel glinted in the shadows where wolf preyed upon wolf, and from the darkness rose the shrill laughter of women, and the sounds of scufflings and strugglings. Torchlights licked luridly from broken windows and wide-thrown doors, and out of those doors, stale smells of wine and rank, sweaty bodies, clamor of drinking jacks, and fists hammered on rough tables, snatches of obscene songs rushed like a blow in the face. In one of these dens, merriment thundered to the low, smoke-stained roof, where rascals gathered in every stage of rags and tatters. Furtive cut-purses, leering kidnappers, quick-fingered thieves, swaggering bravos with their wenches, strident-voiced women clad in tawdry finery. Local rogues were the dominant element. Dark-souled Zamorians, with daggers at their girdle and guile in their hearts. But there were wolves of half a dozen outland nations there as well. There was a giant Hyperborean renegade, taciturn, dangerous, with a broadsword strapped to his great, gaunt frame, for men wore steel openly in the mall. There was a Frem counterfeiter with his curled, blue-black beard. There was a bold-eyed Brythunian wench, sitting on the knee of a tawdry-eyed gunderman, a wandering mercenary soldier, a deserter from some defeated army. And the fat, gross rogue whose bawdy jests were causing all of the shouts of mirth was a professional thief, come from distant coast to teach statue stealing to Zamorians who were born with more knowledge of the art than he could ever attain. This man halted in his description of an intended victim's artistic charms, and thrust his muzzle into a huge tankard of frothing ale. Then, blowing the foam from his fat lips, he said, "By Bel, God of all the thieves, I'll show them how to steal. I'll have my mark over the Zamorian border before dawn, and there'll be a caravan waiting to receive her. 300 pieces of silver, a Count of Ophir promised me, for a sleek Brythunian totem of the better class. It took me weeks, wandering around the border cities as a beggar, to find one I knew would suit, and she is pretty baggage." He blew a slobbery kiss in the air. "I know lords in Frem who would trade the secret of the Elephant Tower for her," he said, returning to his ale. A touch on his tunic made him turn his head, scowling at the interruption. He saw a tall, strongly made youth standing beside him. This person was as much out of place in that den as a gray wolf among mangy rats of the gutters. His cheap tunic could not conceal the hard, rangy lines of his powerful frame, the broad, heavy shoulders, the massive chest, lean waist, heavy arms. His skin was brown from outland suns, his eyes blue and smoldering. A shock of tousled black hair crowned his broad forehead. From his girdle hung a sword in a worn leather scabbard. The Kothian involuntarily drew back. "You spoke of the Elephant Tower," said the stranger, speaking Zamorian with an alien accent. "I've heard much of this tower. What is its secret?" The fellow's attitude did not seem threatening, and the Kothian's courage was bolstered up by the ale and the evident approval of the audience. He swelled with self-importance. "The secret of the Elephant Tower?" he exclaimed. "Why, any fool knows that Yara the priest dwells there with a great jewel that men call the elephant's heart. That is the secret of his magic." The barbarian digested this for a space. "I have seen this tower," he said. "It is set in a great garden above the level of the city, surrounded by high walls. I have seen no guards. The walls would be easy to climb. Why has not somebody stolen this secret gem?" The Kothian stared wide-mouthed at the other's simplicity. then burst into a roar of derisive mirth, in which the others joined. "Hearken to this heathen," he bellowed. "He would steal the jewel." "Hearken, fellow," he said, turning portentously to the other. "I suppose you are some sort of northern barbarian." "I am a Cimmerian," the outlander answered, in no friendly tone. The reply, and the manner of it, meant little to the Kothian. Of a kingdom that lay far to the south, on the borders of Frem, he knew only vaguely of the northern races. "Then give ear and learn wisdom, fellow," said he, pointing his drinking jack at the discomfited youth. "Know that in Zamora, and more especially in this city, there are more bold thieves than anywhere else in the world, even Koth. If mortal man could have stolen this gem, be sure it would have been filched long ago. You speak of climbing the walls, but once having climbed, you would quickly wish yourself back again. There are no guards in the garden at night, for a very good reason. That is, no human guards. But in the watch chamber, in the lower part of the tower, are armed men. And even if you passed those who roam in the gardens at night, you must still pass through the soldiers, for the gem is kept somewhere in the tower above." "But if a man could pass through the gardens," argued the Cimmerian, "why could he not come at the gem through the upper part of the tower and thus avoid the soldiers?" Again, the Kothian gaped at him. "Listen to him," he shouted jeeringly. "The barbarian is an eagle who would fly to the jeweled rim of the tower, which is only 150 feet above the earth, with rounded sides slicker than polished glass." The Cimmerian glared about, embarrassed at the roar of mocking laughter that greeted his remark. He saw no particular humor in it. Civilized men are more discourteous than savages, because they know they can be impolite without having their skulls split, as a general thing. He was bewildered and chagrined, and doubtless would have slunk away abashed, but the Kothian chose to goad him further. "Come, come," he shouted. "Tell these poor fellows who have only been thieves since before you were spawned, tell them how you would steal the gem. There is always a way if the desire be coupled with courage," answered the Cimmerian shortly, nettled. The Kothian chose to take this as a personal slur. His face grew purple with anger. "What?" he roared. "You dare tell us our business and intimate that we are cowards? Get along, get out of my sight." And he pushed the Cimmerian violently. "Will you mock me and then lay hands on me?" grated the barbarian, his quick rage leaping up. And he returned the push with an open-handed blow that knocked his tormentor back against the rude-hewn table. Ale splashed over the jack's lip, and the Kothian roared in fury, dragging at his sword. "Heathen dog," he bellowed, "I'll have your heart for that." Steel flashed, and the throng surged wildly back out of the way. In their flight, they knocked over the single candle, and the den was plunged in darkness, broken by the crash of upset benches, drum of flying feet, shouts, oaths of people tumbling over one another, and a single strident yell of agony that cut the din like a knife. When a candle was relighted, most of the guests had gone out by doors and broken windows, and the rest huddled behind stacks of wine kegs and undertables. The barbarian was gone. The center of the room was deserted, except for the gashed body of the Kothian. The Cimmerian, with the unerring instinct of the barbarian, had killed his man in the darkness and confusion. Stay tuned for chapters 2 and 3.